Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Candice Thompson-Zachary. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the Senior Manager of Programming and Justice Initiatives at Dance NYC. My pronouns are she, her, and I identify as a Black, non-disabled woman of Caribbean heritage. I am wearing a black, white patterned shirt. I have a coily fro. I have brown skin with gold earrings, and behind me is a blank wall. I'm currently on Airi, otherwise known as Trinidad and Tobago, the unceded territory of the Kalina, Waraho, Kalipuna, Nipuyo, Taino, Arawaka people, and the Carib community. Thank you for joining us today for Immigrant, Artistry, Resources, and Community, the second town hall in our two-part Aesthetics and Artistry series. And as we are at the mercy of technology today, we invite you to extend this grace for our time together. Today, we have an ASL interpreter, we have closed captioning, we have English to Spanish simultaneous interpretation available throughout the event. One of our presenters will be speaking in Spanish this evening. Please take a moment now to opt into language interpretation channel at the bottom of your screen. You can enable interpretation using the language interpretation icon on your Zoom menu bar. If you want to hear Spanish to English interpretation, please select the English channel. And if you'd like English to Spanish translation, please select the Spanish channel. A link to the captions will also be found in the chat. Speakers will describe themselves visually, and if we have media shown, it will be also described orally. Feel free to use the comments to ask for technical help or to post anything about today's event. You can send a message to the panelists, which will go to the back-end production team and the presenters, or to panelists and attendees, which will be available for everyone today in the webinar. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and we'll answer as many questions as we can. If the chat and Q&A features are not accessible for you today, please use our helpline, which is 646-893-8783 to submit your comments or questions. That's 646-893-8783. During the program, we ask that everyone abides by Dance NYC's community guidelines, which you can find in the chat. Thank you for helping to ensure that our space remains generative for and respectful of our community. And if you're here, help us amplify these conversations, repost, tag us, share your takeaways on Twitter and Facebook at Dance NYC and on Instagram at dance.nyc. And help us to move this message along. You can learn more about our programs on our website, dance.nyc. So as we move into this conversation about artists and immigrants in New York City, we just want to take a quick moment to draw attention to one of the new grant-making initiatives that are going on in our city, the City Artist Corps program, which was launched by NYFA and DCLA. This program provides $5,000 grants to New York-based artists who have been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. Applications for the second cycle open on Tuesday, July 6th, and currently applications are available in English, Spanish, traditional Chinese, and simple Chinese, and other languages will be available soon. Dance NYC is providing technical assistance for anyone who would like to apply, so please take advantage and definitely help us share the news about this program with your networks. The information about that is in the chat and on our website. So I'm going to move us into our land acknowledgement today. As a way of deepening our work and learning in racial justice, we regularly practice land acknowledgements at meetings and public convenings to recognize our country's violent history and its legacy in the space we occupy. This practice is currently under development with the guidance of Indigenous dance artist and activist Emily Johnson to ensure that we embody this allyship. This includes taking actionable steps towards reparations in this initial instance by nurturing relationships with local, Indigenous, and First Nations artists and organizations, and making pathways for Lenape artists and leaders to return to Lenape Hoking. I would like to acknowledge that the city of New York, where Dance NYC is based, is on stolen land. more specifically, Lenape-Hoking, the unceded homeland of the Lenape people, who are also recognized federally as the Delaware Nation of Oklahoma, Anadarko, Oklahoma, the Delaware Tribe of Indians, Bartlesville, Oklahoma, the Stockbridge Munsee Community, Buller, Wisconsin, and in Canada, the Munsee Delaware Nation, Moravian of the Thames First Nation, and the Delaware of Six Nations. The Lenape people are the original inhabitants and caretakers of this land and gave Manhattan Island its name, Mannahatta, meaning hilly island or place where we go to gather the wood for the bows. Additionally, as we are gathered digitally and inspired by Adrian Wong, a spiderweb show in what is currently called Canada, I invite us to consider the legacy of colonization embedded within the technologies, structures, and ways of thinking we use every day. We are using equipment and high-speed internet not available in many rural indigenous communities that at times leave significant carbon footprints, contributing to climate change that disproportionately impacts indigenous communities worldwide. We acknowledge that changing these inequities are our shared responsibility, as are our roles in decolonization, reconciliation, and allyship. We recognize that as an organization based in New York City, we have benefited and continue to benefit from the systemic displacement and subsequent erasure of Lenape people and governance on their land. Please join me in taking a moment to recognize and reflect on the centuries of violence, displacement, forced migration, and settlement here, as well as the centuries of resilience and leadership of all Indigenous and First Nations peoples on Turtle Island that have led to our presence and livelihoods in New York City today. Let's take a moment of silence. Continuing our practice of recognition, we would like to name openly the legacies of the African slave trade, migration and immigration patterns, the disability rights and disability justice movements, and the LGBTQ+ fight for justice. These areas and tactics of oppression through which white supremacy and settler colonialism have enacted and sustained its power over time are not the only areas, but rather the main focuses of Dance NYC's ongoing historical acknowledgement practice and our justice, equity, and inclusion strategy. White supremacy continuously manifests itself in violence at the hands of law enforcement, in interpersonal interactions, in our government's response to COVID-19, and our cultural institutions. We have witnessed firsthand, as a city and a nation, the palpable impacts that systemic racism has on the lives of Black and Indigenous people, peoples of color, immigrants, disabled and immunosuppressed people, LGBTQ+ people, and people living in low-income communities and poverty impacted by COVID-19. We would like to take a moment to remember the victims of COVID-19 and to honor the unseen labor of the many people to ensure the safety and well-being of our community. We want to acknowledge the violence that has occurred against the Asian and Asian American and Pacific Islander community, and that this has happened after a period of continuous xenophobia and systemic failures exacerbated by COVID-19. And we acknowledge and mourn Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, and more recently, Ma'Khia Bryant, Juan Jose Daniel Castellano, Darren DeJuan Chandler, and Terrell Gass, and all Black people whose lives have been taken violently or whose lives have been violently harmed or taken by the actions of white people, institutions, systems, and the many accomplices, witnesses, and beneficiaries of white supremacy who have actively participated in or stood by and observed in silence. I want to take a final moment of silence. Thank you. And now, we celebrate immigrant artistry and discuss the nuances of supporting immigrant artists in the New York City ecosystem. Today's event will open with a short video, followed by a discussion between the Center for Traditional Music and Dance staff and artists, followed by a presentation from organizations that support immigrant arts workers, and we'll conclude with a brief Q&A session at the very end. So now let's experience this 5-minute clip from CTMD's program Beat of the Boroughs, featuring artists Oneja Lafontaine and Nariman Asanov.
This year has been a painful journey for all of us. The COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted life as we know it. Many lives have been lost, whether our loss of community members was caused by COVID-19, other illness, or natural causes. One thing for sure, we had the challenge of coping with loss and grief. Because we had to isolate and physically distance ourselves, it's been a challenge to pay respect and perform traditional rituals and gatherings when we lose someone. At this moment, I would like to lift the names and contributions of Haitian community members who have transitioned during the pandemic. Dans l'honneur et respect, ça qui gagne, ça qui a ça qui traverse chaque grand déjà.
Hello there, this is Crimean Tatars Association building here in Brooklyn. Nariman Asanov, and we're hoping to play for you several Crimean Tatars tunes. Well, Crimean Tatars is indigenous people of the peninsula of Crimea that is located in Black Sea. Yes, well, during the mass deportation in 1944, some of people were able to escape that deportation basically weeks earlier, and they survived somewhere in Europe, and during the World War II it wasn't very easy. Those who survived 60s, 70s and 80s eventually found some sort of way to come to New York, and that's where the community actually established in 1962.
This is Candice. I'm so glad we got to experience that together. And I'd like to welcome our three guests for this short conversation this evening. Andrew Caldwell, CTMD's project director, as well as Onaja and Nariman, whose work we just saw, work we just experienced on screen. Yes, okay, I think we're here. Amazing. So I'm just going to turn it over. Andrew, can you just first just introduce yourself to everyone? So we'll go from Andrew to Nariman and to Onaja, just like introducing yourself to everyone. Andrew, I think you're still muted.
I'm sorry. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. My name is Andrew Colwell, Project Director and Staff Ethnomusicologist at the Center for Traditional Music and Dance. My pronouns are he and him. I am of mixed Colombian American background. I have a light beard. I'm bald, and I'm here in my work/studio music space. And I'd like to acknowledge that I am on the Lenape and Canarsie land.
Thanks, Andrew. I'll pass it to Nariman.
Hello there. Can you guys hear me? I am Nariman Asanov, pronounced he or him, he's. I am wearing white shirt, brown hair, and calling from, or actually saying hi from original land of Martincog, which is modern place between Queens and Long Island, I guess. And I'm originally from Crimea, and I am white Eastern European, I guess.
Thank you, Nariman. Onaja, take us home.
Greetings. Leg back away, aye, leg back away, aye, leg back. Le baba leg back, Tisotina Monsavalue. I am Oneza La Fontaine. Yeah, I am black. I am a he. Oh, a he. Yeah, I have come very far, so far. Originally from Central and West Africa. I was born and grew up in Haiti, which is the Tainos, the Awawa land, the Awawak. Yeah, I am standing right here in my living room. I have on my right side a mortar drum. Behind me, I have a voodoo sequence flag of Kalfu, the spirit of the crossroad. Yes, I am black. I'm wearing a traditional green shirt. I'm standing on the land of the I am standing on the land of the ancestors, the land of Linap. Greetings, everyone. Welcome. Peace. Again, I'm Oneza.
Thank you, Onaja. Thank you for that beautiful welcome. And what a perfect way to kind of lead us into this conversation. This is Candice. I just want to start by featuring the two artists whose work we just saw. And, you know, as the series that we've been working on is the Aesthetics and Artistry series, we wanted to focus on the actual cultural production, artistic production of certain communities, in this case, the immigrant community. And so I'm hoping that I'll start with Onaja and then we'll go to Nariman, but can you give us a bit more information about what we just saw, right? So each of you shared some of your work. We saw a clip from Onaja with drumming and the Jumba dance and tradition, and then Nariman, we saw a clip of a woman dancing and the music behind it. So can you let us know a bit more about what we just saw on experience on screen, and then tell us what that tradition or experience says about your community, the community that you come from?
Again, over 500 years ago, we've been kidnapped and shipped to Haiti as slaves from Central and West African empires. And in 1791, the slave rose up, fought for freedom. By 1804. They had driven the French or the European out of the country and made Haiti the world's first Black republic, the only successful slave revolution. So our struggle, well, I tell you, it's not easy. It's never been easy. Of course, when we got to the Americas, so remember the land of Haiti, we see the Taino, the Arawak, the Native, the Inca, the Mayan, the Azteca. So we had to inherit the land, and we had to adapt, and we had to come together, create a new nation. So it wasn't easy because some of us from Nigeria, the Igbo people from Nigeria, the Savalu people from Benin, the Congo from Central Africa. So it wasn't easy. We had to come together, create a common language, and also organize our way of life under one roof. So it's a deep struggle, but the thing is, you can take Africa out of us, but you can never take Africa. You can take us out of Africa, you can never take Africa out of us. So when we got to the Americas, so we brought with us our tradition, our African tradition. So we brought with us music, the way we cook our food, the way we dance and everything. But with music, we were able to keep the human relationship together. So that's what happened. So when we became independent, we named the rhythm, the ritual, after the tribe or after the nation of Africa. So yeah, about the video, so the beginning was a Congo rhythm, a rhythm named after the Congo. And when we're talking about the Congo, we're not talking about just the Central Republic of Africa, but we're talking about the culture, the philosophy, the dance. You know, we're talking about the language, Congo from Angola, you know, and also we're talking about stereotype. Because in the 1500s, anyone that shipped out from Africa to the America, they label us as Congo, which means newcomer. So now the second piece you saw, the Jumba, we can trace the Jumba nation all the way back to the Mali Empire. But also Jumba is a rhythm, is a nation, is a tribe that's honored the ancestors of the earth, of farmers. Yeah, this is a dance that we, after a long, hard day of work, you know, we use that dance, like I said, after a long day of harvesting. So usually in the community, we come together and dance and enjoy and have a good time. So, and at the same time, we have to respect the farmers, because people never think about when they put food on their table, when they go to the supermarket. So remember, about a year now, what we had to go through with the pandemic, well, the farmers, they still had to be in the field working hard. So yeah, like I said, I want people to be minded about when they're eating food, when they walk to the supermarket, picking up, you know, those organic or good food, to think about the farmers. So in a way, so music plays such a big part in our life, I'm sorry. So we find music in everything that we do, you know? So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Onaja. Thanks for sharing that. So, you know, apart, of course, from, you know, the various traditions and you talking about how they represent the kind of the coming together of peoples in Haiti, but it's also, I guess, in a sense, in this new setting in the US, it's also a way of like regrounding and of mindfulness, right? Remembering the land, remembering the people, slowing things down, right?
Yes.
So I'm just, yeah, reiterating things that you just shared. Nariman, tell us a bit about what we just experienced in your video.
You know, just catch those last couple of sentences. You said, remembering people, bringing traditions, regardless where you are. I mean, in US, what you just saw, well, Andrew, thank you. You made my life a little more complicated because you picked a very tricky one. That dance Obviously, it represents Crimean Tatars folk music. This is basically music plus dance. This is something what we normally, I guess, identified as a traditional artist, that music can always kind of, with dance, represent our inner circles, like who we are, our characters, our maybe temper, and the tune and a dance called tum tum. Yes, exactly, it's the same way. It's tricky for violin player. It's usually played by violin. I should say this way: it's right when it's played on violin with very few accompanying instruments. But dance, that's the very important one. For years, I thought it's actually traditional for solo women. Not many women in Crimea can also dance this particular, because I think it's very complicated and it has to be very like smooth moves that you kind of maybe associating that particular with like swan, you know, like bird that actually swimming so peacefully. And I know my childhood that people would be very, very, I guess, anxious to go and see when somebody can perform this dance. And we are fortunate and are very lucky that we have one good one in New York here, Dinara Faizova, that you saw. She performed that dance. About 100 years ago, I heard it was a pure men's dance. That shocked me. I said, how? And obviously I had this association that men has to make this sort of similar moves. No, then I don't know who actually decided to bring it back. So history of this dance goes way back when we had independence, back to like 16th, 17th centuries. And Crimean Khanate or kingdom, that when we had the so-called country and the government, and we lived in every now, I guess, in some sort of political turmoils that we need to fight every once in a while for your land. And that was the men's dance that would attract all enemies, that they will not fight immediately. They will not go for fight immediately. So even art at that time would be tool, I guess, peaceful tool, that people would stop fighting and would watch this dance. Well, unfortunately, or maybe it's a good thing in most ways, that we don't fight anymore. We just, you know, I guess we became civilized in late 1800s, and our neighbor Russia did not felt that way, so they invaded us a few times afterwards. And in 2014, after I guess last annexation of Crimea, you probably remember some of it. So our homeland officially, it's occupied territory. And in one of the brief, I guess maybe one of those traditional weddings we still have sometimes on outside, you know, like doesn't have to be a fancy restaurant or fancy, it could be somewhere in a mountain village. And I saw this on somebody's private video that the guys were dancing, and it's very different. I wish next time, if we get the chance, we can record this in, I guess, in most original way, like maybe let's call it like 400 years ago way, the way that men would dance this. It's very different. But for now, as I said, the Tum Tum, it's a dance of showing beauty of how women can dance. And I'm happy we have two versions, at least one in so-called video, I guess kind of like pure version of, you can watch it and you can hear it, and another one coming, definitely. I promise one of these days maybe we can also perform for men that would bring Tum Tum. Also, we have several other
I just want to jump in here to make sure that we get to everything, if that's okay.
Yes.
But thank you for everything that you just said, Nariman.
Thank you.
And so, you know, a lot of what I got from both of you was basically how these traditions function as a representative of the experience of your people, especially in their, I guess, original location, in their homeland, right?
Right.
And, you know, again, now we're here in the US. So I'm just wondering a bit about how you think about, or how these traditions operate as ways of keeping immigrant communities together, if there's any kind of work that you do that incorporates your artistry in terms of fighting for the rights of immigrant communities. serving your community in any way. So I want you to hold on to that question while I switch over to Andrew. If you could just tell me a bit about the Beat of the Boroughs program and the work that CTMB has done in terms of working with immigrant artists. So Andrew, you go first. I think we just lost Andrew. Are you back, Andrew? Okay, I think we may have lost Andrew. So I'm going to turn it over to Onija again. Are you back,
My
Andrew?
back right here. My internet just died. I am sorry. I believe it's the
No
heat
worries.
wave that's caused interruptions in the, at least around here. But your
No
question was
problem.
about the Beat
Yeah,
of the Barrel and the
correct.
relationship
Yes.
of to these programs. Yes.
Yes.
So Beat of the Boroughs NYC Online is an initiative that CTMD, the Center for Traditional Music and Dance, started in the midst of the pandemic, beginning with the New York Community Trust, COVID-19 Response and Impact Fund grant. And we wanted to provide relief in the form of honorariums, but also in the form of visibility for the respective issues and situations of artists we have long worked with, but also with artists we newly began working with through outreach and inreach. And it is through this initiatives that Onija and Nariman came to collaborate on their programs. Onija Lafontaine created his own program and submitted the video to us. And Nariman, in Nariman's case, I did the video production and receiving feedback from himself and community members about the content. And the basic premise was to provide visibility for the issues and agendas that artists wanted to highlight for themselves, in addition to having a general introduction to who they are and their work, and also to have thereby a sense of the impacts of COVID-19 on immigrant artists in New York. And so these agendas vary from and points have varied from program to program. And as I've come to do this work, I've come to learn a lot more about the situations and work of artists. And in Onijah's case, there was also address of the lives lost due to police violence, elders lost due to the COVID-19 impact. What you saw was an excerpt of the program, and their full programs can be seen at the links I provided in the chat. And as I've come to learn the work of Nadiman and the Crimean Tatar Ensemble, which he directs, as well as the American Association of Crimean Turks, which he also directs, visibility in the midst of colonial aggression by Russia, historically and currently, has been one key aspect of the importance of their work, and visibility itself, just knowing who the Crimean Tatars are, has been one key aspect of that work. And whether it's dance or music or lectures, and especially, of course, music and dance. So there's a variety of projects and agendas that coalesce through our mission statement and the missions of the artists we collaborate with that coincide through Beat of the Boroughs and under the pretext of this initiative.
Yeah, thank you for that, Andrew. So I'm just going to turn it over one more time. Onija, can you just tell us a little bit about the work that you do as an activist, sort of on behalf of your community? I know that you use your artistry to do a lot with the Haitian community. Can you talk about that, the kind of activism work that you do? Very briefly, because we're about to turn over to our next section.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, as you know, music, we use music as a tool to bring people together, collectively coming together for different occasions. As you know, music is drumming, dancing, you know, it's healing, it's therapeutic and all that. Yeah, so we were able to work together with the community in terms of participating with the movement, you know, protests against police brutality, which is something we've been doing for quite a while, because it's nothing new about the struggle, you know. So it's beginning over 500 years ago, like I said. So, but with music, with coming together, we always use music to really here. And so we've been doing to the detention sometime because they, especially lately, not lately, it's always been the same situation over and over where, you know, the immigration system and also the problem that goes way behind, or if you go to the roots of the problem, so you have these countries whose use our natural resources, you name it, from Haiti to Guatemala, you know, to Africa. It's always the same case, and people had to flee and leave their country against oppression, persecution, you know, and all that. So in a way, so when people got over here, sort of a new planet to them with the system and with everything that's been going on, racism, and with this pandemic. So I would say, yeah, so drumming plays a big part. So we'll be able to go to the detention center, so to do workshop, healing workshop, drum circle workshop, where we can have people participated. And also, yeah, last year we did a, because of the pandemic, when some, you know, if we go back way to our culture, so death is, we consider death as a way of passage. So we always come together and have some special gathering to send people, you know, as they're leaving this earth. But we wasn't be able to do that last year because of the situation. You can only have 10 people, and sometimes you cannot even attend those funerals. But yeah, with drumming, with our work, so we've been able to protest against police brutality, and also go to detention center and share and do healing workshop. So
thank you, Unaja. Yes, thank you for sharing about the work that you're doing and the way that you're using artistry, you know, in the way that it's always been used, right, for hundreds of years, but basically applying it to today's oppressions.
Yes.
Nariman, tell me a little bit about the work that you're doing, I guess, on behalf of your community.
Well, obviously it's happening here in the United States of America. It's in Brooklyn. But the roots of this so-called resistance, what happened basically almost 200 years ago, a little bit more than that. It's in late 1700s when we lost our independence. Russians brutally wanted to destroy us. Basically, the goal was just wipe this indigenous people out of the map. Like they should not exist. They should not have anything that would remind them that they are not Russians, so-called. The Russians wants to make everybody Russians. We survived. I was growing up in Central Asia in deportation camps, and we had no army. We have no weapons to basically defend ourselves. But we had greatest weapon I found when I actually got to New York, and that was about maybe 25 years ago. I realized the culture, keeping your national traditions, that's the strongest message you can send to your enemies. If they want to destroy you, go ahead. You're not going to take my soul away. You're not going to take my love to music, my love to my language, my love to my food, my love to my dance, my love to my, you know, traditional clothes. I'm sorry I didn't get the chance to get today, but I will be prepared. Oneja, you look great. I see. It's something that, you know, tells me that you're not just from New York. You have something deeper than, you know. And believe it or not, when we came to New York, I didn't have to fight for my identity. I just need to survive because people says, "Oh, America, it's a melting pot." Yeah, maybe, but New York is a great place. It's actually lots of different kinds of colors here, and thank you, and thank you for Center for Traditional Music and Dance, who's helping. And every time when they reach to us, we know they don't want the modern stuff; they want your traditional stuff. And there's lots of, I guess, tools that can be used to just be yourself, represent yourself. And coming back to, I guess, 25 years ago, I found our Crimean Tatars community here in Brooklyn very active. They didn't see homeland for 60, maybe some of them for even longer time, but they were dancing traditional music. They were cooking food, and they would speak our native language, and basically when I became a president of the association, that was about 5 years ago, I didn't have to reestablish something. I didn't have to do something new. I just have to keep up with traditions and dancing and having food fiestas and singing songs again, having fun with your deep root traditions. It's nice. It's something that I guess we were engaged for years, for centuries maybe, and I love it. I don't know how to change myself.
Thank you, Nariman. Thank you, everyone. I wish we could go on forever, but I want to make sure that we have time for everybody else who's joined us to learn about their work. But thank you so much for everything that you've just shared, everyone. We've been posting the links to their work in the chat, so check it out. And I just want to thank you all for what you shared today.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. So I'm going to introduce this next section of our event tonight. We have coming up next representatives from the Caribbean Equality Project, Dance Artists National Collective, Park and Resilience, Centro Corona, Haraka Platform, On Local, the Justice Center, Tammy's Dat, and the New York Foundation for the Arts, and from the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. So we're going to turn it over first to Mohammed, who will present a bit about the Caribbean Equality Project's work. Take it away, Mohammed.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me be a part of this program. I am Mohammed Kiwamin. I am of Indo-Caribbean background, indentured ancestry survival. I am brown skin. I have medium length hair, sort of curly, a little bit towards the left. I also have a goatee, and I am the founder and executive director of the Caribbean Equality Project, which was started in 2015 in response to anti-LGBTQ hate violence. In 2013, my brother and I survived a hate crime incident in Richmond Hill, Queens, where I call home. My brother, who goes by the name of International Dancer Zaman, he also does drag as Sundari, the Indian goddess. We're both queer siblings. And that incident really sort of like wrecked our safety and forced us to reimagine what safety looks like in our Caribbean neighborhood of Richmond Hill, also known as Little Guyana. And being an immigrant in this country, I never really thought about being safe in my Caribbean neighborhood, where the intersections of my queerness and Caribbeanness would be a threat or be challenged by my own community members. And for many of Caribbean immigrants in New York City, safety is a big issue, very similar to the Caribbean. And for folks who are not familiar with Guyana, I am really proud to be Guyanese, but at the same time, we also have a history of indentureship and slavery. And I will focus on the indentureship part because those are the folks that are my background are from. So on May 5th, 1838, 396 Indians landed at Highbury, Berbice in Guyana from Calcutta aboard the White Bee and the Jacobus ships. And during indentureship, about 240,000 plus indentured servants from India were taken to Guyana. And as one of the speakers mentioned earlier today, you can take us out of our homeland, but you can't take our homeland out of us. And for many indentured folks, they struggled to maintain their traditions, cultivate their traditions, which also included dance, religion, and language. But over the years, the Caribbean has been a melting pot infused with Indo-Caribbean culture and African culture. And today we're also known, many folks of Indian backgrounds are identify as Indo-Caribbean. And in New York City, the work that we do preserves Afro-Caribbean and Indo-Caribbean LGBTQ plus folks. The organization itself, from immigrant rights to advocacy, during the pandemic, we were we were forced to shift our work because of the economic crisis that our communities were facing, which included food insecurity. Many of our undocumented queer and trans asylum seekers were left homeless. Folks were forced into the shelter system, and folks were also living without any income. And as many of you may know, if you are undocumented in New York City, and during the pandemic, many immigrant folks were living and still is living without any government aid, without any employment benefits. And when you think of the pandemic in itself, it's been 15 to 16 months that undocumented folks have been living without any income. And I do want to encourage all of you that are on this Zoom today, if you have disposable income, support the work, like the work of the Caribbean Equality Project and many other immigrant groups in New York City that is fighting day in and day out, fighting on the ground, many of whom have risked their lives during the pandemic to protect immigrant folks, which also included responding to the Black Lives Matter movement, which also included responding to the rise in anti-Asian hate that we've seen. And we know that hate in New York City comes in many forms: street harassment, violence against Black trans women, murder of trans women, police brutality. And we as a community have the power to shift resources to protect community, particularly immigrant communities, LGBTQ communities, and also faith communities. And when it comes to dance, we have been doing a lot of work to promote Indo-Caribbean dance, Afro-Caribbean dance, and we did a lot of this during the pandemic. Just recently, we created a program called Live Pridefully, and we were able to celebrate the work of over 20 plus dancers and speakers and artists and activists in New York City, and many of whom did not have an income during the pandemic. So I really just want to thank Dance NYC for creating this space and offering this opportunity for me to highlight the work that the Caribbean Equality Project has been doing for the past 6 years. We are celebrating 6 years of advocacy, advocating for Caribbean LGBTQ voices in New York City. So thank you so much, Dance NYC, for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. We're going to turn it over to Reka and Rebecca from DANC. Candace.
Hello, my name is Reka Echera. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a non-disabled dancer, originally from Vienna, Austria. I currently reside on the stolen lands of the Munsee Lenape Canarsie people, currently known as Queens. I have light brown skin, brown hair, and I'm wearing a red top and silver studs. I'm sitting in front of a blue background with white text that reads Dance Artists National Collective.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Marglich. I use she, her pronouns. I am a dancer and choreographer, originally from what's currently known as Canada. I reside on the stolen Munsee Lenape and Wappinger lands, currently known as Peekskill, New York. I'm a non-disabled white woman with long brown hair that's up, and I'm in a blue sleeveless dress, and I'm in front of a blue background with white text that also reads Dance Artist National Collective. Thank you so much to Dance NYC for inviting us here today. We're honored to be here with this incredible group of speakers. A bit of information on Dance Artists National Collective. The group began in 2019 and grew very quickly when COVID-19 hit, as many of us found ourselves unemployed. We call ourselves DANC for short. We are a united group of dancers organizing for better pay and working conditions for dancers in the US, especially those who are most impacted by systems of oppression. Please check out our website for our full mission statement. Reka and I have both been very active members organizing within DANC since April 2020.
This is Reka speaking. DANC's current focus is to provide a floating letter of agreement, a contract for dancers to use. As we all may know, freelance dancers in the US often work without any written agreement. Last summer, we broke off into separate working conditions, researching and developing language around wages, working conditions, benefits, equity, and negotiating. Angela Falk reached out to us specifically seeking advice on the language she and her benefits working group had been drafting. And we quickly learned this was a great opportunity for immigrant dancers to gather and discuss their specific needs within this LOA that we're creating. And so we created a sub-advocacy group within DANC focusing on immigrant dancers in the US called International Dancers Circle.
We are mainly currently advocating on behalf of immigrant freelance dancers based in the US or coming to the US. We're mostly focused just currently on O1B visa holders, P1B, OPT, or those interested in applying for those visas. Immigration in the US is much larger than the complications of achieving a work visa, and we recognize the privilege of having access and support to apply for O1 visas in the first place and to even navigate this complex system. The immigration system is purposefully complex, extremely expensive, racist, and leaves behind those who are most marginalized.
Thank you for that, Rebecca. This is Reka. Next, I'd like to share more about what kind of organizing we are doing. So we're engaging in conversations and education with companies and choreographers around specific and easy things they can do that will greatly help immigrant dancers, especially those on O1 and P1 visas that Rebecca just mentioned. There's very little awareness within the dance community on the challenges of applying for work visas. We want to educate our community around simple ways they can support their immigrant friends. We recently have done an awareness campaign on our Instagram, so please check it out at Dance Artists National Collective, where we talk about, for example, an O1 visa can cost between $4,000 to $7,500 or more, I hear as well. That cost doesn't guarantee you a successful application and may only get you 1 out of the 3 years you're applying for. And there are limitations on the kind of work you can do on an O1 visa. You can only work within your field. So you can't do any of the side hustles. And we know that sadly as dancers, we all need those in order to survive. We're also creating some negotiation tools to be part of DANC's upcoming letter of agreement for when an employer hires you as an O1. We want immigrant dancers to feel empowered to ask for what they need and to normalize aiding freelancers navigating through this complex immigration system and lessening the burden for the dancers themselves.
There are very simple things and cost-effective things that employers, choreographers, and peers in the field can do to help dancers applying for work visas. Just quickly, knowing a writer, getting press coverage, featuring images and text of the O1 holder, giving admin work, supporting with printing costs, allowing O1 visa holders to audition. And right now our International Dancer Circle is also serving as like a casual support group, which was especially important during COVID. For example, like we're checking in with each other. How are these travel restrictions affecting you? Can you apply for unemployment? These were just few of the conversations that came up in our conversation. And what these rant conversations, we're calling them, made evident was that there was confusing information for artists on visas. We're also building community and compiling resources that aren't always easily available. For example, compiling a list of dancers willing to talk to newer immigrant dancers on things like taxes, health insurance. I know that personally I made costly mistakes on my taxes and costly mistakes on accessing healthcare when I didn't understand the system. And so this is all knowledge that we hope to also share with our peers who are entering the US entering the US in general, or maybe live here and having trouble accessing these things. We're also compiling a list of recommended lawyers, which is extremely helpful.
So thank you so much for inviting us to speak tonight. We hope to connect with you all in the future. We are the most powerful in numbers, so please join us. You can become a member or ally of DANC by going to our website. We know there's a lot of work to be done. And we also shared some links. We've had a podcast talk, a couple of articles, And yes, just please visit our website, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Andrew Ceceno, and I'm the creator of Parkon Resilience. I am a Southeast Asian male with brown skin, and I'm wearing a gray t-shirt with a baby Yoda on it, which is a green little monster with pointy ears. And my hair is pulled back in a ponytail with a white wall behind me. I'm on the unceded territory of Lenape-Hoking, otherwise known as New York City. In just drawing some bridges to what some of the other speakers shared who are immigrants, I'm a first generation Southeast Asian. They have a connection to culture and food and language. And growing up in America, that is something that I always bridge to search for. Parkon Resilience has been a response to trying to connect with body and a sense of self through white somatic practices, Laban movement analysis, the Feldenkrais method, and also becoming a physical therapist. To culture, to culture and my sense of self, that to culture and my sense of self through those forms. They were decontextual outside of a social resilience is a form that of one of the sessions that I did most recently. One of the partner organizations that Parkon Resilience has worked with is the National Organization for Asian Pacific Islanders Against Sexual Violence. So during our meeting, we were figuring out other ways to check in that were not just verbal. And I invite any of you to join me in trying this quick exercise. If you were to consider how you feel with how your hand is shaped, it could be straight, it could be a fist, or somewhere in between. And so the other members of this project group that I'm part of were considering this question. It's a project group that's working with 6 other healers of Southeast Asian diaspora to figure out a handbook for sexual abuse survivors. And so in considering this, people were figuring out where they landed. One woman was sharing that she was, her fists were closed and she was celebrating. Healthcare provider that she felt seen by and her needs were met. Others were commenting on their fist feeling open like this, and they wanted to open it or close it, but in the moment it felt like this. So why? And some of them were they were relaying that it was the pressures of society that were preventing their hand from opening, and pressures that they've experienced in their work. And another woman started to share that with her stresses, she wanted to offer it to the water. And so we went into, I asked her, like, what are the ways that you express water through dance with the dance forms that you do? And she showed different movements that represented the water. And as a collective, we could take that on and we could speak our stories and speak our emotions into that collective water. And so I'm sharing this as an example of how the body and movement and dialogue are explored through the Park on Resilience work. I have used it in this project, and we provide weekly support circles, practice circles of Park on Resilience, including trainings for other community organizers and activists to learn the work and use it with their organizations. And also it is being used for curricular development, like what I spoke about with NAMPI-CEF. Thank you.
All right, welcoming Rosa and Natalie. Candace.
Hi. Hola a todos.
Hello to everyone. Hello.
Do I start? Yeah, vamos. Okay. Hola a todos.
Hello to everyone. My name is Rosa Bao.
Soy de Ecuador.
I'm from Ecuador.
Vengo del.
I come from.
Ya estoy en el centro Corona.
I am in the Corona Center, and I've been here for about 7 years. And I come from the center also. I deal with. I am also a leader. I am the leader of the Ecuadorian dance. I'm interested in the activism, okay, and dance and art, and it's very mutual. This is a community organization that we do like support among our neighbors. And in our mutual support, we also provide support to, you know, with offices, government offices, translations. And regarding of our community web, you know, and in this pandemic, what we have done is help, you know, to distribute food to the immigrants and people who are most needed, and giving them at least the basic foods. Also, we have done this with the arete. And now I'll pass it to Natalie.
Okay, my name is Natalie Rea. I'm 14 years old. I go to school at Gramercy Arts High School. I've been a part of Central for about like 9 years. Oh, and what I'm wearing is like a brown tank top, and I'm in a greenish yellow room. I forgot to say that. I do dance, I do art, I do theater. I help with the community a lot at Central. A word, like some words you would use to describe Central is a place where you can learn leadership, you can have knowledge of working class and immigrant communities, seeking to build a self-determined, collectively imagined future. We respond to violent and local and global processes that destabilize our communities, and we do so using our collective creativity, solidarity, and strength. Rather than organizing people around specific issues and campaigns, we prioritize building relationships with our neighbors. Yeah. From that center, we follow the lead of those in our community most directly and immediately impacted by state and impersonal violence, most of whom are working class, migrant, youth, women, gender, non-conforming, trans, and queer people. And Central, I think, is a very like community. It is a community-built space. Everyone is welcome. And like some resources we have is like accompanying to court cases, immigration cases, and a lot of different things. Yeah, we also partner with other, what's it called? Other organizations too. Rosa, ¿tienes algo que añadir?
Rosa, do you have something else to add? Well, right now, we're closed, but we're planning to open very soon. You can follow us, you know, in the web. If Natalie remembers anything else.
Perfecto, that's great. Thank you so much, Natalie. Gracias a Rosa. This is Candice here, turning it over to Adham.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm aware that the time is much shorter than I thought, so I will very quickly go through the slides I had prepared, and I will ask Brenda sometimes to skip a bunch of slides, but I'm happy to send them by email or send a script also for anyone who's interested later. So I'm Adham Hafiz. I'm an Egyptian artist, theorist, and curator. I work with choreography, sound, and text. And I have no gender in particular, and my pronouns in Egyptian are way too complicated for the panel now. We could talk about it another time. And I would like to recognize that I'm speaking today from a colonized land that we today call Manhattan, a colony where the original inhabitants have almost been entirely wiped out. And also important to recognize is that the current political position is favoring colonialism over indigeneity. And the current political position is supporting ethnic cleansing in Palestine today as we speak through direct financial aid. Some of it comes from our taxes that are used to demolish houses, widow women, and orphan children. My question is, how do we speak about colonialism through our practice? How do we find resources to make our voices heard? And how do we work with the hurdles in front of us? Brenda, next slide, please. Thank you. This is an image from a publication in 1892 called Kawkab America. Kawkab in Arabic means planet. The publication Planet America was published from New York City, 1898, looking at the history of immigration of Arab, Middle Eastern, and Muslim people to the US. At the time, it was illegal for an Arab person or a Muslim person to naturalize as an American citizen, and it was impossible to be both Arab and American up until the 1940s. Next slide, please. So this is in Arabic, and Kawkab America was an attempt where people who have just moved to the US, this is in the 1890s, were trying to carve out a space for themselves in discourse, in how they are represented, trying also to share news from America to the world outside where they originally come from. And can we jump a couple of slides, Brenda, please? I'm going to try to very quickly go through this. Another jump and another jump. Thank you. This is not Manhattan. This is Samia Gamal. Yes, thank you. By the Sphinx, the Egyptian dancer and choreographer who was part of a movement in the early and mid 20th century of Egyptian and Arab artists coming to New York, trying to create links of exchange between the US and the Arabic speaking region. And again, through a history of erasure, a lot of this is forgotten. And if we can jump one slide, Brenda. This is Samia dancing in New York, and this is Samia participating in theater projects in the US in general. And if we can just jump again, skip again, skip again. I'm sorry, this is going much quicker than I had planned. All right, we stop here. So this is an image from a production that we did 4 years ago called ETMAC, the Extraterritorial Ministry of Arab Culture. And Haraka Platform, one of the two organizations that I represent, is a collective of artists trying to think of their relations to exile and how their work is seen through the eyes of Western discourse, whether we are talking curatorially or academically. And one of the main hurdles is how do we share archives, how do we talk about erasure, and how do we raise questions about ways of looking and ways of seeing. And this performance created a fictitious ministry that represents these immigrant artists and these refugees living in the West, trying to perform the policies that we dream of. So none of this was real, it was all performance. But then 4 years of doing this performance and raising questions of what it is we could actually do, we decided to set up a company that is based on the idea of ETMAC to create a way of supporting artists actually. And here, can we jump? Let's go to, yeah, more, skip. My timer still says 3 minutes, but apparently I'm on minute 5 already. You know what, if we can, yeah, let's just stop here. So this is just, no, the image of the belly dancer on the wall, the one after, yeah. No, one more for, thank you. No, it's fine, it's fine. So let's forget about this slideshow. No, I just wanted to share with you a toolbox that I think I would like people to explore and see potential ways of thinking how we can do things to support the artistic community here. So as I said, this performance that we created to share resources and create a way for what we dream of in performance, us performing work about the future of institutions, these chronotopias, to create a way of actually sharing technological tools that allow us to explore what it is that we do and allowing others to have ownership of a technology that is now creating a new economy, specifically the blockchain. I'm happy to explain more what Wizara does if there is a time for conversations and share with you our QR code that will take you to our website, but thank you.
Thank you, Adham. I'd like to welcome Angelica on camera now. This is Candice.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much to Dance NYC for the space. Let me check in with my background. So my name is Angelica Lara. I'm a indigenous person with brown skin from a Mexican territory of the Nahuatl people. I have long black hair. I have dangly earrings and a white t-shirt on. And I have blue makeup on my face. And I will say so, I'm really good looking too. So let me talk to you about Unlocal and what we do. Unlocal is a community-centered nonprofit organization that provides direct immigration, legal representation, and community education to New York City's undocumented immigrant communities. So the work that I do in specific is that I'm the education and outreach director. And what we do is that we provide a series of programming that encapsulates a lot of what people need to know when they're undocumented in New York City. So we represent people in court. We have a rapid response program for people who are detained and who need representation. And we also have a hotline that you can call if you need any kind of resource when it comes to your immigrant status in New York City. The Unlocal is composed of a legal component and an education component, and we have two projects. We have the Queer Immigrant Justice Project, and we have the Rapid Response Project. The Rapid Response Project is the project that responds to the people who are already detained, and the Queer Immigrant Justice Project responds to people who are experiencing immigrant injustices specific to their queer identity. Some of what we offer right now that we see that a lot of artists in specific are asking for is, of course, the Excluded Workers Fund. As an undocumented artist, not only did COVID hit really intensely as an artist, but as an undocumented person, a lot of people were not eligible for unemployment or were not eligible for the stimulus checks that the White House sent. So the Excluded Workers Fund were something that we stood in solidarity, and these type of bills are some bills that we back. And right now we're also giving out some resources on the rental assistance program that is going to roll out tomorrow. We do programming from Know Your Rights training, what to know if ICE comes to your work, what to know if ICE comes to your house, from if your undocumented child wants to go to higher education and how to access that higher education, from any kind of resource that we feel like the community can request, and it is in our power and our skill set to respond to. So thank you so much to Dance NYC, and if anyone has any questions, they'll put my email down on the bottom. And I would like to say that I forgot to say that I'm standing on the land of the Lenape people who are still here and will continue to be here in spirit and soul. Thank you.
Candace here. Thank you, Angelica. I'm welcoming Ralph on.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Ralph Zuge. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm a disabled Haitian immigrant, currently residing in Muncie Lenape land, specifically in Englewood, New Jersey. Yeah, I'm dark-skinned. I have tightly curled 4C hair, a slightly scruffy beard. I'm wearing a collared shirt with burgundy stripes. And yeah, I'm here representing the Justice Center in El Barrio. And I wanted to talk a little bit about who we are and what we do. So the Justice Center is located in East Harlem, but we do work in all the boroughs all over NYC and the greater NYC area. Pre-pandemic, the Justice Center was a hub for community organizing, social justice, and social justice movements for immigrant communities and marginalized communities as a whole in general. We've since, the pandemic, we've moved to organizing remotely, but our goal kind of remains the same of building power within, these immigrant marginalized communities. Yeah, so we're a multinational organization. We have strong internationalist values. We understand that how immigrant communities are deeply connected to the political landscape of our home countries, right? And so we actively engage with international politics in all of our work. For example, this summer, we're organizing a class series on the history of Palestine and the struggle for resistance from Israeli occupation that the Palestinian people are currently engaged in. And that's just one of the examples of political education we engage in. We have various other areas of work, such as mutual aid, housing, advocacy for victims of racist police violence and mass incarceration, sorry. Yeah, we've been active in the Black Lives Matter movement, Stop Asian Hate movements, for example. Yeah, the area of work I'm specifically most involved in right now is support for immigrants in ICE detention, specifically in New Jersey and Bergen County, where I'm located. We organize weekly actions in front of Bergen County Jail, and we participate in phone zaps and email zaps weekly with the larger Abolish ICE Coalition to advocate for the release of undocumented or immigrants in general in ICE detention. And yeah, and I know I've mentioned a lot of different things, but I do want to emphasize, as the Justice Center, we engage in all these struggles simultaneously because we believe that at the core of all these struggles are the same systemic barriers that we can best break down by banding together and building power within our communities. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, we encourage you to follow us on social medias. That's at Justice Center NY on Twitter, Justice Center in El Barrio on Instagram and Facebook. And yeah, if you want to get in touch via email to see where you can get plugged in with your Justice Center representatives in your community, that's justice.center.l.barrio@gmail.com, and I'll post all those links in the chat after this. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ralph. Candace here, I'm turning it over to Matthew.
Hello, can you hear me? Are we good?
Yes.
Okay, good. My name is Matthew Covey. My pronouns are he and him. I'm a non-disabled white man with brown hair and a beard. I'm wearing a black t-shirt. I'm speaking against the background that blurs my bedroom into some semblance of propriety. I am speaking to you from the unceded ancestral land of the Munsee, Lenape, and Canarsie people in Brooklyn. I am the executive director of an organization here in Brooklyn called Tamizdat, which is a nonprofit that supports the performing arts by providing pro bono legal assistance, advocacy, and education regarding international borders and visas. A couple of the projects that we work principally on that are relevant to this discussion is we run a thing called Tamizdat Avail, which is a hotline that provides pro bono legal assistance to people in the performing arts who are having problems principally with P and O visas. So in that sense, we work largely with non-immigrants. There's a limit to how much that hotline can do, but basically it's there as a kind of a crisis safety net. So if a artist or a presenter or an agent or somebody that is having some kind of problem, especially if they filed their own petitions themselves and they kind of run up against a wall, you can get an immigration attorney 24 hours a day there who's going to be able to help you figure out what it is that went wrong and what you can do about it. We run the Safe Havens Incubator for Music, which is a residency program in coalition with the Artistic Freedom Initiative and the West Beth Artist Residency, which is designed for helping artists at risk from various parts of the world get a foothold and kind of get back into the making of music. Here based in New York, it's a year-long residency program. A lot of what we do is falls under the heading of the policy project, which is we handle visas for about 5,000 performing artists each year coming into the US, and that data is data we use to drive advisories that we work with Homeland Security and the State Department to try to help them understand how they can make their processes work better. So we work with them when they work with us, we see them when they don't. And we do a lot of artist information sessions, both here and internationally, helping people to understand the US artist visa process. The idea is that this is primarily a legal-based organization of lawyers and arts professionals who work together to try to make the US audiences, try to make it possible for US audiences to have access to international artists from all around the world, despite the barriers created by US immigration policy. That's about it. I'll put our link in the chat.
Candace here. Thank you so much, Matthew. Turning it over to Zara from Nightwalk.
Hello, my name is Zahra. My pronouns is she, hers. I'm currently on the land of Canarsie people in Brooklyn. I'm non-disabled Iranian woman with a light skin. I have a short curly hair with some highlights. I have a green t-shirt and my background is a white wall. I'm program officer at New York Foundation for the Arts, which is a nonprofit art organization that empowers artists, art professionals, and emerging art organizations by providing critical support, resources, and opportunities. Through our Immigrant Artists program, we support artists and creatives with diverse backgrounds who have the experience of immigration with the services and resources they need to thrive in New York and beyond. To support the artists, the Immigrant Artist program has 3 components: Immigrant Artist Mentoring Program, Con Edison Immigrant Artist Newsletter, and Immigrant Artist Resource Directory. Next slide, please. Immigrant Artist Mentoring Program pairs emerging foreign-born artists with mentors who interact with them on a one-on-one basis and guide them to achieve their specific goals. Besides one-on-one mentorship, the program offers group meetings, which build around the cohort needs to support them with resources and ideas. So far, we supported more than 465 mentees from 70 countries. Next slide, please. The next slide, I have a picture of our Canadian Immigrant Artist Program newsletter. Through this newsletter, artists by subscribing to this newsletter, they receive monthly emails with information on events, opportunities, and grants, which they can benefit from. The newsletter also interviews other immigrant artists, which usually builds around their achievements, and they can give practical advice on how to sustain a career in art. Next, please. And the last part of this program is Resource Directory, which provide additional content and encourage people to build relationship with other organizations that support immigrant artists. Thank you so much. Thanks, Dance NYC.
Candace here. Thank you, Zara. I'm going to turn it over to Jean, our last presenter.
Thank you so much for staying all the way to this end, and nice to meet you all. My name is Jean Bay. I'm a Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs at New York City Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. I am currently in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. I'm a non-disabled Korean woman who has a short black hair with fading blonde highlights and green vertical striped dress and a white background with a dim light. I just wanted to briefly describe our office and some of the programs that we have. We try to make sure that New York City immigrants can access city, state, and federal services regardless of their immigration status or the ability to speak English or understand English. And we try to represent the voice of immigrants in all those different government settings. We have an Action NYC program, which provides free, trusted legal help, especially for people who are not necessarily applying for O visa, which has been described a lot today, but have more complex issues, like they're facing potential deportation or other immigration issues. We have a lot of trusted legal providers who can work with you. Call our hotline at 1-800-354-0365. I'm happy to leave that in the chat. We also have ID NYC, which is a card for all New York City residents from all backgrounds, from all 5 boroughs, and your immigration status does not matter. It provides a lot of benefits. So a lot of US-born citizens living in New York City have the card as well. I will again put a note about the website in the chat. And if you have any questions about how to access city services or have challenges, call Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs hotline at 212-788-7654. And again, I'm happy to put this in the chat. And just one more thing relating to ID NYC is that it's an accepted ID for the Excluded Workers Fund, which Unlocal has mentioned before. And I will also put some city resources for artists, such as New York City Artists Corps, Cultural Development Fund, as well as Open Culture, which is a new permit for performance or other types of event. And I am here to help you in whatever way you want. I will also put my personal information as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jean. This is Candace here. I just want to welcome everybody back on screen together. Because we are so short on time, we're not going to have time for Q&A for everyone today, but I just want to make sure that we're all on stage at the same time. You can kind of take in everybody that's here. To our audience, if there are specific questions, please email us at Dance NYC, and we'll sort of play go-between to get your questions answered. All of these presenters have shared a lot of resources with us, so we'll send a follow-up email that will have all of their information, all of the links that they shared, videos, etc., slides, so that you will not miss anything out. As well, we'll be sharing a recording of today's session, which will get uploaded onto YouTube. So just know that the information will be available to you. So just a final thank you to everybody for all of the work that you shared. It was so great to just like experience all of the work that you're doing in the same place. I want to transition us into a few announcements before we close off. Thanking, of course, the backstage team here at Dance NYC that's helped us make all of this happen. I want to thank our ASL interpreters, Jessica and Veronica from Sign Nexus. I want to thank Jenny, who did the live captions from the Viscardi Center. I want to thank Ivory Nunez Medrano, who did our simultaneous interpretation in Spanish, and Ana Jimenez, who did interpretation into English. So thank you, everybody, for all of the work that you've done. I want to thank our support, which Dance NYC's initiatives are made possible with support from the Mellon Foundation, from Howard Gilman, from Mertz Gilmore, and with public funds from DCLA and NISCA and the NEA. So please fill out the post-event survey. If you attended and found something useful from tonight's event, if there were things that were missing, let us know. Please share your information in the survey so that we know. And thank you again for being in community with us tonight. We appreciate it. This is such important work. Please tell everybody about all of the things that you learned about and experienced today. Thanks again, everybody.